There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. I am delighted to be here today with my dear friend Lindy from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. You have seen her before on my channel when she visited Tokyo, but we are doing this remotely via Skype chat. Lindy, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks.
Great. And we are here to chat about a story from this fabulous collection, which matches your blouse over there, your lovely sweater.
I love pink.
Yeah, me too. It's a gay thing, isn't it? We are going to be chatting about a story from this anthology of Japanese short stories called The Penguin Book of Japanese Short Stories, edited by J. Rubin, which I think was published 2019. And you have now read the entire book, Lindy.
I have.
It's been sitting on my shelf for maybe a year. There's two Murakami stories in here, Haruki Murakami stories, right?
Yes.
And you said that the penultimate story in the book was pretty darn good, so we made a plan to have this little chat about it. It is called UFO in Kushiro, and it was part of his collection called After the Quake, which was published in 2000 in Japan and then in English 2002. Translated also by J. Rubin, who edited this book. Give me any kind of introductory comments you'd like to make on the story. We'll go from there.
I really enjoyed this story. I'm already a Murakami fan, and it's like I could check off all of that. Okay, yep, there's the Murakami inclusion of jazz music. There's the inclusion of a cat. He snuck that one in there.
Inclusion of what?
A cat.
Oh, I missed that. Where was the cat?
It's when the woman slides in between the sheets like a cat.
Oh, okay.
He does that surrealism so well. He includes kind of red herrings, aspects of his stories where you wonder, why did he put that in there? And you're left wondering.
Great. Yes, I'm nodding along to all of that. I would like to just put in a few little facts about him and then kind of the context for this story. He was living in the States when the Kobe earthquake happened in 1995, and this collection of stories is based on kind of the aftermath of that earthquake. And like I say, maybe January 1995 was the Kobe earthquake, and 1 month later was the Tokyo sarin gas terrorist attack. Those two events caused national trauma for Japan and brought Murakami back to Japan, at least for a time, maybe permanently. I don't know all of the biographical details, but I do know that he came back because of those two calamities, and he wrote this collection of fiction about Japanese people in the month between those two disasters, one natural disaster, the other a terrorist attack. And he also wrote a non-fiction book about the sarin gas attack. So that's kind of a little bit of the background. Just like what you said a minute ago, red herrings and things that don't seem to go anywhere. I love that about this story. There are so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, so like we never learn the name of his wife, for example.
That's true, and yes, and some people have taken issue with that.
One of the things that I do expect from Murakami is that most of his women tend not to be fully fleshed out characters. They seem to be there to advance the central male character.
Yes.
That's definitely what's happening in this story, I think.
It is, with a little bit of a twist. Did you read the interview Miyako Kawakami did with?
Yes, I did, yeah.
And she talks about that. She kind of takes him to task, which I thought was great, about exactly what you're saying. So when I reread that this morning, I thought, okay, this is a very similar dynamic. It's not successfully sexual, but it's still part of the pattern, right?
Successfully?
Well, I mean...
all right. Are we allowed to give spoilers on discussing?
Well, I think so. I mean, when it's a short story that's been published decades ago, and how do we talk about it? And is anybody going to remember the spoiler when they eventually read it? I think spoilers are okay. I'll keep this conversation in, so if you don't want spoilers, stop watching now. And you can find this story online on the New Yorker, but I think you need a paid subscription, although maybe with your 3 free articles a month you can read it. I'll put a link in the show notes. The pattern of the women kind of being the almost like the muse for the men's psychic journey.
Yes, but you know what I liked about his wife, that character, is that, like right at the beginning, we find this out, that she's left him.
Yes.
They've been married for 5 years, and watching the news about the earthquake, which he does constantly for a week or so, 6 days, and then he comes home, finds out that she's gone, and she said she's not coming back.
Right.
And she says that you are empty, you have nothing to give me.
Yes.
And I actually could really feel for her.
Sure.
That she was not satisfied in her role as a wife in Tokyo. She didn't like living in the city. She came from Yamagata, I think.
Yes.
And so her husband, Komura, he was feeling fully satisfied with everything about his marriage, and she was totally unsatisfied. It seemed like he had no idea what his wife was going through.
Yes. Yeah.
Good for her. She's decided that life is short. You could die in an earthquake tomorrow, and this is not where I want to be. I'm not feeling fulfilled. So off she goes. So I was, yay.
I love the way that you described that, because it hadn't really clicked for me that complicates the kind of superficial critique of him, because he does include, at least sometimes, female characters where we experience their dissatisfaction and they're wanting a change or they're taking an exit, not agreeing to fulfill that function for the male characters in the story. That is really true. So what the hell was in that little package, Lindy?
Yeah, one of those red herrings.
Maybe I should describe for our listeners, if you don't know the story. After Komura's wife leaves him, his coworker asks him to deliver a package to a city in Hokkaido, and his coworker will pay for the flight and put him up in a hotel if he will deliver this small little package that's mysterious. He doesn't tell him what's in it, but it's a very light, small little package to his sister in Yushido in Hokkaido. So that's what we're now speculating about.
It's like there could be something supernatural about it, but it could be totally explained without any aspect of supernatural at all. And I like that about it. It's totally unexplained.
That's right.
And the reader is left to just imagine what you like.
And so he goes to Yushido, and he's met at the airport by his co-worker's sister and her friend, Shimao, which I guess is a family name. It's not a first name. It's not a Christian name. The Christian name doesn't fit in Japan, but it's the young woman's family name. And they check him in to a love hotel in the part of town that's full of love hotels and graveyard marker stores. Was that right? So,
yeah. Kushiro is famous for, is there a big graveyard there or something? I don't know. I did look at the map to see where it is in Hokkaido, and it is next to the ocean.
Yes.
And talk about the bitter winds and the snow.
Yes, the weather seemed to be very important to the background atmosphere of the story. I thought that juxtaposition of sex and death was pretty significant. One of the questions I have is, didn't you think that, and again, this might fit in with your female kind of empowerment, the way that you're talking about certain aspects of the story, didn't you feel that the two women in Yushido were kind of mocking him?
You could take it that way, but also Sasaki is the sister.
Yes.
And Shimao is her friend.
That's right.
And Komura ends up in bed with Shimao. Yeah. Right. So Sasaki and Shimao are, they have all of their in-jokes, and, they've known each other for a long time, and they, giggle about things together. And so Komura is on the outside.
Yes.
Well, he's a fish out of water, really. He's never been to Hokkaido before.
Right.
He doesn't know what his future is going to be because his wife has left him. And it's all kind of up in the air for him. And then he's also feeling jet lagged, I think, too. So everything is kind of discombobulated for him.
That's a good word.
To me, these women in their interactions with each other seem very believable. They've got stories about, hint at, and yeah, they laugh, but it didn't seem like they were really mocking him, maybe teasing him a bit.
Sure. Maybe we won't spoil this, but there is a rather dramatic encounter between Komura and Shimao at the end in bed, where again she seems to be teasing him, but maybe not, and he was momentarily enraged. So that was a very intriguing way for the story to end.
Yeah, it was like he finally felt something.
That's right.
A man who was just all surface all the time.
Yes.
Good looking, made good money, was a great salesman. His colleagues couldn't understand why he was with such a plain wife.
Yes.
But he was empty inside.
Right.
And there's a thing that happens in this story that suddenly makes him feel strong emotion.
Yes.
And that opens up. And I have the feeling that when the story ends, really good things are going to happen for Komura because change has happened for him.
The last word of the story is beginning, which I love.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all we need to say about the story, unless you have anything else. So I think we have successfully teased my viewers to check the story out.
There was one more thing I wanted to say, and that is through this pandemic that we're going through right now, I find that whatever I read, it's always through this filter.
Yes.
And so stories about dealing with uncertainty are really resonating with me. So I particularly react strongly to this one because of that.
Yes. Komura's wife is sitting on the couch and she can't tear herself away from the news about the earthquake. That really resonated for me in terms of what life has been like for me the past few weeks. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of things like that. Okay, do you have any other comments on the interview with Murakami that Miyako Kawakami did?
No, but I thought of another thing, a quote that you mentioned recently, a Barbara Pym quote. It came back to me when I read this story.
Because you know how to get my attention, Barbara Pym, bring it.
Because in the story, it said twice, no matter how far you travel, you can never get away from yourself.
That's right.
There's something along those lines in a quote that you had from Barbara Pym.
Sure, let's put it in. I can pull it up here. That is brilliant, as usual, Lindy. That was one of my Sunday sentences a week or two ago.
Right.
And it is spot on. It's from an academic question. Her penultimately published novel. Wherever you go, you take yourself with you, she said. That is too upsetting in beautiful surroundings. Great. So the only thing I want to say about the interview, it's fascinating. I think people should check it out. A lot of my booktube friends, a lot of my reader friends cannot stand Murakami because of his portrayal of women. I think it's not that simple, and that interview with Kawakami is rich in nuance. So please check it out. And she singles out one story in particular of his that she absolutely loves. She singles out in a way that really complexifies, is that a word? Complexify? Deepen, John, where are your words? Have a sip of coffee and...
I'll have a sip of gin.
Sip of gin? Out of a sake cup?
Yes, from your wedding.
That you're drinking gin out of it?
Yes, it's...
That's fabulous.
Local gin.
Wow. Now I know why you're so articulate, Lindy. You got gin flowing through your veins. And now I know why I'm not. I only got coffee. It's too early for gin or sake. Yes, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. She really takes him to task for some of the ways that he portrays women in the way that you've commented. But then she goes back to a story, an early story called Sleep. from The Elephant Vanishes. I'm not familiar with that story. Are you?
I did read that story. I read The Elephant Vanishes, the whole collection, but that was like, I don't know,
Decades ago.
89 or something that I read it.
In her interview, it's an on-stage interview. This is an English translation. And she says, I've read lots of female characters written by women and lots of female characters written by men. To this day, I've never encountered another woman like the character in Sleep. It's an extraordinary achievement. I think if we can figure out a way to get access to that story, someday in the near future or the long-term future, let's have another chat about that story.
I would love that.
Okay, great. So everybody, this hopefully gives you a tantalizing tease about the story UFO in Kushiro, so you should check it out. And thank you very much, Lindy.
Pleasure.